My wife cheated on me with her boss, then stole $200, $0 from our joint account to run away with him. And now she's claiming I forced her to sign a prenup she never agreed to in court. I never imagined that my life would turn into some twisted nightmare, but here I am, living it. The most shocking thing, it all started with a simple, almost innocent suspicion that spiraled out of control. I found out my wife was cheating on me with her boss, Mark. Yeah, Mark. The guy she always said was just a friend from work, but that friendship turned into something much dirtier. And the worst part, she stole $200, $0 from our joint account to run away with him. I still can't wrap my head around how someone I trusted so completely could do something so cruel. And I had been together for over 10 years. We met in college, fell in love, and got married right after I graduated. I thought we had a good life, decent house, 2 cars, a comfortable income. I worked as a project manager at a construction firm, and she was a marketing executive. Things weren't perfect, sure. We had our fights like any couple, but I never thought she'd actually betray me like this. I mean, I knew she was ambitious, sometimes bitchy about her career, but I thought we were solid. Until I started noticing small things, late nights, secretive texts, odd phone calls she'd hide when I entered the room. It all escalated a few weeks ago when I decided to check her phone out of curiosity. I know, stupid move, but I was desperate. I found messages from Mark, flirtatious and suggestive, talking about meeting up after hours, discussing some project at work, but I could tell what it was really about. There were pictures, too, nothing explicit, but enough to make my stomach turn. They seemed to have a whole secret language. I felt like I was punched in the gut. How long had this been going on? Were they sneaking around behind my back for months? The betrayal hit me like a freight train. That night, I confronted her. I told her I knew about the affair, and her face twisted into this bitchy, defensive glare. She dismissed it, called me paranoid. "You're overreacting, James," she snapped. "Mark and I are just friends. You're imagining things. Why would I do that to you? We're married, for God's sake." But I could see the guilt in her eyes, the way she avoided my gaze, the way she stumbled over her words. I pressed her, and she finally broke down, admitting she'd been seeing Mark secretly. She said it was just sex, that she was unhappy, that I was too busy with work to notice her needs, that she didn't mean to hurt me, that it just happened. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. How could she lie so easily? How could she betray everything we built? That betrayal alone was devastating, but then I found out about the money. Turns out had been siphoning funds for months. I started noticing discrepancies in our bank statements, small amounts here, larger sums there. I thought maybe it was just overspending, but then I saw the real thing. A transfer of $200, $0 to an offshore account, tucked away in some shell company she set up. I couldn't believe it. That kind of money, gone. Just like that, all to fund her escape with Mark. I was furious, hurt, and feeling so stupid for not noticing sooner. How could I have missed all the signs? How could she do this to me, to us? The worst part, she insisted she was forced into signing a prenup that I supposedly made her agree to. I never forced her. I was trying to protect what was ours, but she's spinning it like I'm some kind of monster. She claims I threatened her, that I coerced her into signing it after she found out about the affair, but that's a lie. I just wanted some fairness. She's the one who's been unfaithful and stealing from me. Now she's trying to turn it around, making me look like the bad guy. It's maddening. I never thought I'd be the guy to get cheated on, especially not after all the years we spent together. I feel like I'm living someone else's nightmare. The betrayal, the lies, the money gone, all of it hit me like a ton of bricks. I don't even know who really is anymore. I keep asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to what was happening right under my nose. And I'm left with this deep, gnawing pain, wondering if I'll ever be able to trust again, or if I even want to. After discovering all of this, I was in shock for days. It's one thing to suspect something, but to have concrete proof, that was a whole different level. I remember sitting in the dark, staring at the bank statement on my laptop, trying to process what I was seeing. $200,000. Gone, just like that. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind kept racing about what she was doing with Mark, how she could betray me so completely, and how much I had trusted her all these years. It felt like my entire world was falling apart. I decided I needed to confront her again, face her with everything I knew. I called her home one evening when I knew she'd be there. I told her I wanted to talk. When she answered the phone, I could hear the fake sweetness in her voice, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I knew about the affair, about the money, everything. Her reaction was a classic display of her bitchy side. She started to deny everything, saying I was paranoid, that I was crazy to think she'd do something like that. She told me Mark was just a friend, that I was overreacting because I was stressed from work, but I wasn't buying her lies anymore. Then she started spinning her own version of events. She claimed that I'd been emotionally abusive, that I never paid enough attention to her, and that she was just looking for comfort somewhere else. She said she was desperate, and that Mark was the only one who actually listened to her. She even threw in the classic line, "You're so busy with your stupid projects you don't even notice how unhappy I am." It was all bullshit. I knew her too well. She always had an excuse, always the victim. The confrontation got heated fast. She was bitchy, sharp-tongued, trying to guilt-trip me. She said I was controlling and that I never appreciated her. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. How could she turn everything around and make herself look like the victim? I was furious that she could lie so coldly, that she could betray me, steal our money, and then have the audacity to blame me for her actions. Every word she said felt like a punch in the stomach. I wanted to scream at her, but I stayed calm, knowing that any anger I showed might just give her more ammunition. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, the secret texts, the offshore account, her lies. I was overwhelmed with betrayal, but also a strange sense of clarity. I realized I couldn't keep living like this, not knowing if she was still sneaking around, not knowing if she'd stolen more money, or if she was just waiting for the right moment to leave. My mind kept circling back to one question: how much more was she hiding? Was there anything she hadn't told me? The trust was shattered beyond repair. The next day, I started digging into our finances more. I hired a private investigator just to get some peace of mind. I needed to know if she was involved with Mark beyond what I'd seen, if she had more secret accounts, or if she was planning her escape even now. The investigator came back with some disturbing details. Had been meeting Mark at a luxury hotel in the city, staying out all night, and withdrawing large sums of cash. She was planning her escape, I could tell. I felt this cold dread settle in my stomach. I'd been played, used, and betrayed in ways I never thought possible. I also discovered that she'd been manipulating the truth about the prenup. She claimed I forced her into signing it, but the truth was, she signed it willingly after a few drinks, trying to get me to settle some minor disputes. She's lying now in court, claiming I coerced her, but I have the signed document. I even have emails where she's thanking me for the agreement and saying it's what's best for both of us. It all makes me so angry, how she's spinning things to look innocent, when she's the one who planned everything behind my back. Looking back, I realize I was blind for a long time. I missed the signs, ignored the small red flags, convinced myself that maybe she was just stressed or busy. But in reality, she was planning her escape, cheating on me and stealing from us. The betrayal is so deep, I don't even know if I want to try to fix this anymore. Part of me just wants to tear everything apart and move on, but the other part is still holding onto some hope that I might find justice or at least get some closure. Either way, my trust is gone, and I'm left standing here, trying to figure out what's next. After all the digging and uncovering more truths than I ever wanted to face, I knew I had to act quickly. Was planning her escape, and I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything, especially not the money she stole from us. The day I found out she'd been meeting Mark at that hotel, I decided enough was enough. I needed to get ahead of her plans to stop her before she took off with what was left. That's when I devised my plan for revenge, cold, calculated, and precise. First, I contacted a lawyer I trusted, someone who specialized in financial crimes and divorce law. I explained everything: the affair, the stolen money, the offshore account, her lies, and her false claims about the prenup. I wanted to get everything on record, to make sure I had legal backing to fight her claims and to recover what I could. I also had the investigator gather more evidence. Photos of her with Mark, proof of withdrawals, emails, even recordings of some of their conversations I secretly captured. I wasn't going down without a fight. My plan was simple but effective. I knew she was planning to leave town within the next few days, maybe even sooner. My goal was to make her stay, to expose her lies, and to turn her own game against her. I started by contacting her boss, Mark, under the guise of a business matter. I told him I knew about their affair, that I had evidence, and that I was prepared to go to court if necessary. I also let him know I had enough to ruin his reputation, to make sure he understood I wasn't messing around. Mark's reaction was nervous, which told me I was on the right track. Next, I reached out to the bank, had the accounts frozen temporarily, and flagged the offshore transfer. I also set up a watch on her phone and emails so I could monitor her movements. I contacted the airline and hotel chains, trying to find out if she'd made any bookings or plans. Meanwhile, I prepared a detailed dossier of everything she'd done: photos, bank statements, emails, witness statements from the investigator. My goal was to have all the evidence ready when I went to court, to show she'd been planning her escape and stealing from us all along. I also decided to confront her directly one last time, but this time with everything in hand. I set up a meeting at a neutral place, some quiet coffee shop downtown. When she arrived, I was already sitting there with my lawyer's documents on the table. She looked surprised, maybe even scared. I didn't hold back. I laid out all the evidence: the affair, the stolen money, the offshore account, the secret meetings with Mark. I told her I knew she was leaving, that I had everything documented, and that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Her bitchy attitude quickly turned defensive, but I could see she was panicked. She tried to deny everything, but I had her cornered. That confrontation was intense. She called me paranoid, said I was ruining her life, that I was just jealous and controlling. She spun some story about how she was forced into the affair because I was absent, that she was unhappy but never meant to betray me. I just looked at her and said, "You stole $200, $0 from us, lied to my face, and now you're trying to blame me. You're the one who betrayed everything we had." I told her the truth. I was done being played. I'd fight her in court, I'd expose her lies, and I'd get my money back. After that meeting, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief, because I finally had proof and a plan to stop her. Anger, because I'd been so blind for so long, trusting someone who clearly didn't care about me. That night, I stayed up late, going over everything I'd gathered, preparing for the inevitable fight ahead. I knew she'd try to spin her story in court, claiming I was abusive or that she was forced into signing the prenup, but I had the evidence to counter that. I was ready to fight for what was ours, even if it meant tearing her world apart. In the end, I realized that revenge isn't about hurting her just for the sake of it. It's about justice, making her face the consequences of her actions, and protecting what little I still have left. I don't want her to walk away scot-free, thinking she can get away with betrayal and theft. I want her to know that I won't be a victim, that I'll fight for myself, for my dignity, and for what's right. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about reclaiming my life from someone who tried to destroy it. The days that followed were a blur of legal consultations, police reports, and frantic planning. I knew was desperate to get out of town, probably thinking she could outrun her mistakes. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I had all the evidence, and I was determined to stop her before she disappeared with what was left of our life savings, and probably more. I'd already arranged for a temporary restraining order, and my lawyer advised me to be ready for a fight in court. I wasn't about to let her manipulate her way out of this one. The morning she was supposed to leave, I made sure everything was in place. I had the bank accounts frozen, the offshore transfer blocked, and the police ready to step in if she tried anything. I also set up a hidden camera in the house, just a small device that recorded everything. If she tried to sneak out with the money or do anything suspicious, I'd have proof. I wanted to catch her red-handed if she tried to run. When she woke up that morning, she was already acting suspicious. She was rushing around, packing bags, and acting like she was on a mission. I stayed calm, pretending I didn't know her plans. Then, right before she grabbed her purse, I confronted her with the evidence I had. I showed her the bank frozen notices, the emails from the airline, the recordings from the investigator. Her bitchy attitude quickly turned to panic. She started to cry, denying everything, claiming I was trying to control her, that I was overreacting. But I cut her off. I told her I wasn't going to let her leave with our money, that I had already called the police if she tried to escape. She tried to play the victim again, saying I was ruining her life, that she loved Mark and was just trying to be happy. I told her she'd already ruined mine, that she'd betrayed everything we built, and now she was trying to run away from the consequences. I told her I had evidence of her plans to leave, and if she tried to leave now, I'd have her arrested for theft and fraud. Her face twisted into a snarl, but she knew I was serious. In that moment, she made a last-ditch effort to manipulate me. She started crying, begging me to let her go, claiming she'd do anything to stay, even if she had to give back the money. I didn't buy it. I told her she'd already made her choices and she was going to face the consequences. I called the police right in front of her and they arrived within minutes. She was stopped at the front door trying to sneak out with a bag full of cash and some of her belongings. The officers took her into custody and I finally felt a small sense of relief. It was over, at least for now. I knew she'd fight me in court, but I had the evidence and I was ready. I spent the next few days trying to pick up the pieces, feeling a strange mix of anger, sadness, and a little bit of hope. It hurt like hell to see her taken away, knowing she'd betrayed me so deeply. But I also knew I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. I was done with her lies, her manipulations, her betrayal. That night I sat alone in my house, staring at the empty space where she used to be. The silence was deafening. I kept thinking about everything, how I'd trusted her, how she'd used me, and how she'd stolen from us. But I also realized that I was still standing. I still had my dignity, my integrity, and most importantly, the truth. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be court battles, emotional pain, and maybe even more surprises. But I was determined to fight for what's right, to get my life back. In the end, I learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals who you really are. I found out that trust is fragile, and that sometimes people you love the most can turn out to be the biggest liars. But I also learned that revenge isn't just about hurting the other person. It's about reclaiming your own strength. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting closer. And I'll never let anyone take everything I worked for or my dignity ever again. The court proceedings dragged on longer than I expected, but I was prepared. Every piece of evidence I had gathered was laid out meticulously. Text messages, bank statements, the recordings, even witness statements from the investigator. So attorney tried to spin her story, claiming she was coerced into signing the prenup, that she was a victim of emotional abuse, and that I was controlling and manipulative. But I had the facts and I had the truth. The judge listened carefully, and I could see the wheels turning as my lawyer presented the case. Defense tried to argue that she was just a victim of circumstance, that her actions were driven by desperation and unhappiness. But the evidence was overwhelming. The offshore account, the secret meetings with Mark, the stolen money, it all painted a clear picture of betrayal and greed. I could feel the anger boiling under the surface, but I kept my composure. I knew that the truth had to stand on its own. During the hearing, claimed that I had forced her into signing the prenup, that I threatened her with divorce if she didn't agree. I immediately produced the signed documents, along with the emails where she expressed her gratitude for the agreement. I also brought in witnesses who confirmed she was drunk when she signed, and that she never objected at the time. The judge looked at her with a mixture of skepticism and disappointment. It was clear she was trying to manipulate the court, but her lies weren't going to hold up. The most satisfying moment was when the judge ordered the immediate return of the stolen funds and froze her assets. She was held in contempt for trying to leave with the money and was ordered to pay restitution. The court also awarded me a significant settlement for emotional damages and the betrayal. That moment, seeing her face fall as she realized she was going to lose everything, was oddly cathartic. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, like I finally had some justice. But the aftermath wasn't just legal. I had to deal with the emotional fallout, the betrayal that cut so deep it felt like I'd lost a part of myself. I spent weeks trying to process what had happened, questioning everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and loyalty. I went to therapy, talked to friends, and tried to rebuild my sense of self. I couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and relief, anger at her, but relief that I was finally free from the nightmare she'd created. In the quiet moments, I reflected on what I'd learned. Trust is fragile, and sometimes people you love can turn into complete strangers. The betrayal hurt like hell, but it also made me realize my own strength. I'm not the same person I was before, but I've grown stronger because of it. I learned to be more cautious, more aware of the signs I'd ignored, and to trust my instincts more. Now I'm slowly rebuilding my life. I've started focusing on myself, working out, reconnecting with old friends, and even exploring new hobbies. The pain will never fully go away, but I'm learning to live with it. I won't forget what happened, but I refuse to let it define me. I want to believe that someday I'll find someone who truly values me, not just for what I can provide, but for who I am. Looking back, I realized that revenge wasn't about hurting just to hurt her. It was about justice, taking back control and making sure she faced the consequences of her actions. I hope anyone else in my position learns that honesty and integrity matter, and that betrayal always comes with a cost. Trust is fragile, but resilience is stronger. And in the end, that's what saved me. Now, sitting here months later, I can honestly say I've come a long way. The pain still lingers, but it's less sharp, more like a dull ache that reminds me of what I've been through. I've learned to trust myself again, to listen to that little voice that warns me when something's off. I don't think I'll ever fully forget what did, but I've accepted it as part of my story, something that shaped me into someone who knows his worth. The biggest lesson I took from all this is that betrayal is a brutal teacher. It exposes who people really are, and it forces you to confront your own limits. I used to believe in fairy tales, believed that honesty and love could conquer all. But life taught me that sometimes people wear masks, and those masks can hide some pretty ugly truths. I realized I had to stop trusting blindly, that I had to protect myself first. That's what I did, and I feel stronger for it. One thing I want to say to anyone reading this who might be going through something similar: trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it. Dig deeper. Don't let fear or love blind you to the signs. Because if you don't, you might end up in a situation where you lose everything: your money, your dignity, your peace of mind. It's hard to face the truth, but sometimes it's the only way to truly move forward. Revenge for me wasn't about hurting. I didn't want her to suffer. It was about making sure she couldn't get away with her lies, her theft, her betrayal. Justice isn't always about revenge, but in this case, it helped me find closure. Seeing her face the consequences, knowing I fought for what was right, that was the real victory. I learned that standing up for yourself is the most powerful thing you can do, even when the odds seem stacked against you. Now, I focus on rebuilding my life. I've started therapy, reconnecting with friends, and taking care of myself physically and emotionally. I'm not rushing into anything new, but I'm open to the future. I believe that everyone deserves a second chance at happiness, but only with honest, loyal people. I've become more cautious, more aware, and definitely more resilient. Looking back, I see how far I've come from that guy who trusted blindly. I've learned that love isn't enough if it's built on lies, and that sometimes the biggest act of strength is walking away from what's broken. Betrayal hurts, but it also teaches you what truly matters: trust, integrity, and self-respect. Those are the things I'll carry with me forever. And if there's one thing I hope anyone reading this takes away, it's that you're stronger than you think. No matter how deep the betrayal, how dark the betrayal, you can come out on the other side. It takes time, yes, but healing is possible. I'm living proof of that. I've reclaimed my life, my dignity, and my happiness, and I'll never let anyone take that away from me again.